Hey everyone, so good to be with you all. This is Brian again, and I decided that today I would put up a literature review video. It's been a while since I did a literature review. I have been putting up sermons and sermon videos. I have a few of those that I want to put up, but I have been reading a lot of books. Always reading a lot of books, so I wanted to do a literature review of a book that I really enjoyed. I think since the last one I put up was about Notes from the Dead House by Dostoevsky. Surprise, surprise. This is a book by Leo Tolstoy, another Russian author. But after Dostoevsky and Notes from the Dead House, I've been reading lots of Agatha Christie novels. I love my Hercule Poirot and some Ray Bradbury books. And lately I've been on an Iceland phase, so you all know I love the far north. Anything cold, anything ice and snow, basically because I despise hot weather. I live in Philadelphia, which is mid-Atlantic United States, and we are lucky in that we have 4 seasons, really distinct 4 seasons, and it does get cold, it snows, but you know, a Russian would laugh about how much it snows here, but it does get extremely hot in the summer, and today it is projected to be over 100 degrees. I think yesterday it was 102. So these are the days that really make me wish I lived in northern latitudes, especially Russia, Iceland, anything like that. But I am currently looking for a place in northern Maine, which is quite cold, and hopefully I'll be able to, if not move up there, have a separate place or a kind of a second home up there where I can go and do some videos and show you all some of the nature up there. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful state, Maine. And like I said, it does get cold and snowy, so I will be very happy. And I bring that up because the book that I want to review today is The Cossacks by Leo Tolstoy, the Count. And I think this is the Modern Library edition. Yes, Modern Library Classics edition. And this is very much about the nature, about the outdoors, nature, and so much so, in fact, that I believe nature is a character. It's very much a character within the novel. Sort of has a life of its own, drawing people to it. And what's interesting, I think, is that the Cossacks, they coexist with nature and they work around it and make it part of their lives, whereas a typical, I think, American or American attitude is to like conquer nature and bend nature to our will and impose what we want to do on nature, on the natural world, extracting resources and all of that. And the Cossack life depicted in this book is very much different, very much coexistence with nature and each in a partnership, thriving on each other. So that is, I think, one of the themes of the book. But before we get into too much of the themes of the book, I just want to give some background. So this book, The Cossacks, was published in 1863, and it was before, so early on, Leo Count Tolstoy did a autobiographical, what they call an autobiographical trilogy, childhood, I think, youth, and adulthood, maybe. I haven't read them, so I don't know. But I think that's how it goes. And after that, he wrote the Cossacks, and then he's transitioned into writing the bigger novels that he's known for, War and Peace, of course, Anna Karenina, and then Resurrection. So this book, as I was reading, kind of marks a transition away from the autobiographical material to sort of the novel form that Tolstoy transitioned into. Although this book is sort of autobiographical, it depicts the what's called the Caucasus War, where the Russian Empire was expanding south into the lands of like Chechnya, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, those areas. And then on the other side of, I think, the Black Sea is like Uzbekistan. Oh, and also I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the names, but Dagestan. So those are the sort of areas that the Russian Empire was expanding into in the early to mid 1800s. And of course, the indigenous peoples in those areas, especially Chechnya, did not like the expansion of the Russian Empire into their lands. So they fought back, and the Russians had to fight a long war against these people, the indigenous people, called the Caucasus War, taking its name from the Caucasian mountain range. So the dates that Wikipedia gives me for that war is 1817 to 1864. So kind of after the Napoleonic period and all the way into the mid 19th century. So Tolstoy was a member of the Russian army, and he did serve for a time in the Caucasian region. So he was involved in some fashion in the fighting. I wasn't sure exactly how, but he seemed to be fascinated by the Cossack culture, and sort of what this book is about: the Cossack culture and the clash between the Orthodox Russian culture and then the Cossack culture on the frontier of the Russian Empire. It's sort of a clash, but then also an idealization of that culture. And this book was fascinating to me because it deals with something which I wonder. Just to give you some statistics. So this book is, let me see, how many pages? 161 pages. So relatively short, especially by Tolstoy's standards. So if you want to jump into Tolstoy, it's not a bad place to start because it's relatively short. Oh, and I took my bookmark out. I hope I can find where I want to read. But just to give a little introduction. So our main character is a man called Olenin, and he is a sort of a young man from the upper class in Moscow, and he, not to give away too much of the plot because I don't want to spoil anything, it really is a good story. He's made some very bad decisions in Moscow and gotten himself into some sticky situations. So he wants to kind of escape his life in Moscow and start things new, start things afresh. So he decides to enlist in the Russian army, and he gets sent to the Caucasus War. And so he takes a long journey, long, from Moscow to southern Russia and the Caucasian region. And there he joins his regiment. And he's just automatically enthralled by the natural surroundings of that region, especially the mountains and the people, the Cossack people, because I was trying to think of what would be a parallel in American culture to sort of the Cossacks, and I thought about the Native Americans here in the States, but the Native Americans I think are a little different because their culture was pretty much alien to the frontier sort of American culture that they clashed with. The Native Americans had a different religion, and they dressed differently. They had different means of economy, and basically their entire society was different. So the Cossacks aren't quite like that. They're quite different from traditional Russian culture. They dress differently. Like I said, they have a different attitude towards like the natural world, and they have different customs in terms of family life and the role of women. I think is something that comes out starkly in this book, but they're not so different from the Russians as it would be from like a typical American frontiersman and a Native American. So the Cossacks have the same religion, they sort of have the same cultural framework. They're known for being excellent horsemen and fierce warriors. So I was thinking that the closest parallel would probably be sort of the American cowboy. So it would be like taking a wealthy person from upper class Moscow society in the 19th century and putting them into the Cossack culture as it's depicted in this book. And that's all I know about it. Would kind of be like taking someone like Charles Dickens and throwing them into West Texas during the heyday of sort of the cowboys out there, and I think that's kind of the culture shocks that Olenin goes through. But what I was curious about is whether this is true for women as well as men. But me personally, I've always sort of had this fantasy of like disappearing, abandoning everything in my current life and kind of taking this long trip, and then seeing some country or part of the world that is completely foreign to me, just going on this grand adventure and sort of starting my life over again, and forgetting about the things I've done in my past that I'm not so proud of. And I don't know if that's just sort of a fantasy that I have, this idea of like running to somewhere new. And if you ever seen like 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt, where he sort of finds this fantasy land with a completely alien culture and finds himself there and develops this whole new perspective on the world. That's sort of the way that I've envisioned this fantasy in my life, and I used to tell people if I disappear, you'll find me on some hillside in Ireland or something like that. Back when I was fascinated with Ireland more than the far north. Today it might be some village in Iceland. I don't know, but curious whether other people have that fantasy or if it's just me. But definitely Olenin has that fantasy because that's what he does. He runs away from the bad decisions he's made in Moscow, and he joins this regiment, and he gets sent to the Caucasians, and he like I said, that he's immediately struck by the natural world, and of course there's a love interest, right? So uh, he falls. He immediately becomes uh, infatuated with this woman, Mariana, who is a Cossack, and the the Cossack women seem to be like very much alive, right? So they are in tune with nature, and they're out doing farm work. So they're they're very strong and physically strong, and they're kind of independent. They can do things on their own, and uh, just they seem to have this vibrancy that the women that Olenin is used to in Moscow don't have. See, the women in Moscow are kind of, they're upper class women, so they're bred for, they play the piano, they do things like that. They dress beautifully, and they care about their appearance and all of that, which is a different type of woman than the ones that Olenin interacts with in the Cossack community. So he falls in love with this woman, but there's some tension because the woman is interested in this Cossack warrior in the village. And oh my goodness, I forget the Cossack warrior's name. But so there's tension between Olenin and the Cossack that Mariana is. I would say that she very much prefers him, the Cossack, over Olenin. So we are following, sort of trying to see whether Olenin is going to be accepted as the Cossack, or not as an official Cossack, but sort of accepted into the Cossack community, and whether his desire to be with this woman is going to be fulfilled. So, and there's some more going on too, obviously, because it is the Caucasian War, so there's fighting going on in the frontier, and Olenin becomes involved in the fighting, and also the Cossack warrior that Mariana is in love with, he's involved in the fighting. So there's some pretty interesting battle scenes going on, and the depictions of battle and death are pretty realistic, I think, for that period, the period in which this book was written. It kind of punches you in the gut when you there's a death and you get up close and personal. So I won't give too much away, but it's definitely worth a read, especially if you're into sort of reading about the natural world and people's adventures in nature. So I have a disability. Actually, I think I say this every single video I make, and I don't actually mean to, but it comes into so often into what I'm saying because it's part of my life. So you can see my scooter in the back that I sometimes use to get around, and so I love nature. I'm fascinated by everything about nature, birds and squirrels and everything I can see within my little area that I'm able to get to, but I'm not able to really to just randomly go hiking into the mountains as like Olenin would or someone else. So I have to read a lot about nature through other people's vantage points, and sort of living vicariously through other people. And this is a great book for that, for living vicariously, because Tolstoy, as he always does a great job of depicting and describing the natural world. He's just such a great writer. I really think he is the best writer I've ever come across, and just the way that he draws the way that he is able to depict, to paint a scene, not just talk about it, but kind of paint it as a work of art, whereas you can really connect with it and see it in your mind's eye. And I'm looking right now for the part that I want to read to show you his writing about the natural world, and perhaps I'll have to stop the video. Okay, I'm back, everyone, and I found the passage that I want to read. This is I want to read a little chunk of the book because I want you to be able to hear some of Tolstoy's writing and see if you can depict the natural world as he is writing about it. This is Olenin, and he's taking a part of his journey from Moscow to the Caucasus, and he has just sort of glimpsed the Caucasian mountain range for the first time. And it says, the following day, as he rode in the troika early in the morning, he was awakened by a chilly breeze and looked around indifferently. The morning air was completely clear. Suddenly, not more than 20 paces away, as he first thought, he saw massive mountains, clean and white in their gentle contours, the intricate, distant line of the peaks and the sky. He suddenly gasped. The great distance between himself, the mountains, and the sky, the immensity of the mountains, and the boundlessness of this beauty, and was afraid that this might be only an illusion, a dream. He shook himself to wake up, but the mountains were still there. What are they? Can you tell me what they are? He asked the driver. Mountains, the Nagoi answered him indifferently. I've been looking at them too, Venusia said. What a sight. No one back home would believe it. Venusia is his sort of servant that came along with Olenin on his journey. So this is the first time Venusia is seeing the mountains as well. As the troika spread over the smooth road, the mountains looked as if they were running along the horizon. The rose-colored peaks sparkling in the rising sun. At first, the mountains merely took Olenin aback. Then they filled him with joy. But then, the more he looked at the chain of mountains that rose not from behind other mountains, but straight out of the steppe, the more he felt them. At the moment, everything he saw, everything he thought, everything he sensed took on the stern and majestic character of the mountains. All his Moscow memories, the shame and repentance, all his foolish and trivial dreams about the Caucasus disappeared forever. It was as if a solemn voice told him, now it has begun. So that is just a little bit of how Tolstoy describes the natural world around the Caucasian village where Olenin spends the majority of this book. So overall, an excellent book. I think anyone interested in nature or Russian culture or history in general would love this book. I give it 5 stars just because it's Tolstoy. It deals with Russia, and it's a depiction of the natural world, and I could really place myself in it as someone with a disability who can't necessarily experience it through my own eyes. So I'm very much grateful to the Count for giving me the opportunity to experience the Caucasian mountain range from the comfort of my own home. So I think that's where I'll end this video. And thank you for watching. Hope you're able to pick up the book and read it for yourself. I'm very interested in your impressions of it, and would love to hear your comments. Just to give you some idea of some other things I'm reading, I very much, as I said, on an Iceland kick lately. So I've been reading this book, which is excellent. It's by Sarah Thomas. It's called The Raven's Nest. It's actually a memoir, so not the usual fiction that I'm reading, but it's a story of her life as an English woman moving to Iceland and spending some time there. And I am astounded by the way that she writes and the way that she is able to depict the natural world. So it is my joy to read this book, and I'll definitely be doing a review about it. I really want more people to read it and to experience the way that she sees the world, and I would like for her to have more visibility as the author that she is. So that's one book I'm reading, and I'm also listening to an audiobook, Independent People by Halldor Laxness. He is a Nobel laureate in literature from Iceland, and Independent People is probably his most famous book. I've heard a lot about it on BookTube, and so I've been listening to the audiobook. It's a very interesting book. It's keeping my attention for sure. I'm not sure if it would be a 5-star book for me, but I'm not done yet, so I have quite a bit to go, so I'm not going to pass judgment. But again, thank you for watching, and I'll be back again with either a sermon video or another literature review when I finish Sarah Thomas' book or Halldor Laxness. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.